The toughest trials for Yuri Tranquilitsky were the reconnaissance missions, in which he and his platoon had to participate several times. From the first such reconnaissance, out of 25 people in their platoon, only 6 returned alive. Therefore, before each such attack, they were given a large canister of vodka in the trenches.
Your platoon will conduct a reconnaissance in force. It's about the same. The same as saying you will go to the scaffold. Because reconnaissance in force is practically a deadly case. So before the reconnaissance by fire, they brought us a dirty, rusty milk can, like those used to transport milk in villages. When it was opened, such a smell came out. And oil slicks on top. So this is what they call vodka. They gave it to us. They poured not 100 grams, but probably 200. I said to give my portion to the platoon. It would be easier for me personally if I drank that stuff, which they called vodka, because for others, well, it'll kill them, and it doesn't matter, right? But for me, you know, right here, under the skull, the pulse started pounding like a heavy hammer, because you have to get up and move forward and shoot, and most likely you'll get killed. What is reconnaissance by combat? It is the sacrifice of a small unit to identify the enemy's firing positions. So, we have to throw grenades, shoot from automatic rifles, shout, create the appearance of a real advance. Each soldier makes himself an extra little hole somewhere above the water, so that insert the boot and climb out. Getting out of the slippery trench from under the beam isn't easy either. We climb out of the trench, start shooting, shouting, hooray, and throwing. Throw grenades. In other words, make noise. Our artillery is silent. It is locating enemy firing points. Opponent. That's how we ran to the German trenches, threw grenades there, and jumped into the fascist trenches. That's when it started. It's something that probably needs to be mentioned separately. Before the war, I was involved in Sambo, self-defense without weapons, and we also studied combat techniques. Well, we practiced on each other, on our friends, doing it slowly, calmly, until there was some pain, and then I faced a Nazi point blank. That is, I couldn't even turn my submachine gun to shoot, gun to gun, point blank, flat to. He suddenly jumped out of his trench and ended up in front of a Soviet officer. What did I do? I hooked his right leg with my left leg. I made a simple hook and sharply pushed him with my rifle. He fell because his leg was hooked and held by me. That's when it was easy to turn, to pull the trigger. That's how we held out for a day. On the 22nd of June, the offensive officially began, called Operation Bagration.
It was precisely for this operation that it was decided to sacrifice Lieutenant Tranquilitsky's platoon to ensure victory on this section of the front. According to Yuri Nikolaevich, communication in our troops during the war was very poor. Often, there was no communication between units at all, and usually orderlies were sent with assignments. The command didn't even know that Tranquilitsky's platoon burst into the German trenches, drove out the Germans, and secured the position. Therefore, on June 22nd, our troops struck with all kinds of weapons at those trenches where their platoon was located.
So, we are in the German trenches. No communication. Absolutely no telephone, nothing. And the artillery preparation begins on the German trenches. I was under all kinds of German firearms and cannons and machine guns, and then I found myself under my own. So the artillery preparation lasted for an hour and a half, maybe 2. The scariest part was the Katyushas started hitting the German trenches, and we were in them. And then the ground started to flow. The ground, like something loose, was swaying and moving, and I got buried. There were probably about 10 of us left from the platoon. Some of my soldiers were given away. Some went to the rear. For communication with the command that the platoon commander was killed. My mother received a notification that I had died, but they dug me out, dusted me off, and I was back in the ranks, as if nothing had happened. My mother received the death notice.
And then after some time she received a letter, written with the left hand in scrolls, no? Adi yasine kushi Asia.
Here is the letter. His mother preserved it, and it has survived to this day. Her son Yura wrote it already from the hospital, where he was soon admitted with a severe injury. With his only functioning left hand, he somehow tried to inform her that he was alive and that she could even visit him. But all of this happened a little later. Meanwhile, the advance of our troops during Operation Bagration was swift. Yuri Tranquility's platoon, after a month of sitting in trenches, was now constantly moving forward with heavy fighting. Sambo, which Yuri Nikolaevich already talked about, became his religion during these relentless battles, because 6 times, sometimes in the most hopeless situations, it saved his life.
We were practically surrounding Vitebsk from the south. We took a number of settlements. Meanwhile, I continued having contractions, hand to hand with the fascists. I had 6 main ones, which I won, thanks to Sambo. So, from the roof of the house,
Of a village house.
unexpectedly, I was looking at my level, a German jumped from the roof and landed feet first on my back. My face was in the mud, and he sat on top of me and started choking me with iron fingers.
Like nails.
And already almost losing consciousness. By some sort of reflex, I managed to push one hand away, and right then I broke his arm at the elbow joint. He screamed. Already on top in the heat of the fight, I broke his other arm. Then a few punches to save bullets to the temple, and it was over with him. Next, the following village, through this swamp, on a chest, on legs don't feel support everywhere. There's some slush. Climbing out. The automatic rifle, naturally, is also in the swamp. I look to the left. The fascist takes aim at me in my direction. I raise my automatic weapon, pulls the trigger. No shot. It got clogged. In the swamp. And his doesn't shoot. Well, like in a fairy tale. Either he ran out of bullets or something else. He's running at me. I prepared to meet him. He immediately kicks me in the groin. I catch this leg and perform a pain technique on the Achilles tendon. This is a move we practice on the mat. It's a slight pain, just a bit. But here I did it sharply, and there I think the bones in his ankle broke or the joints tore. That is, he screamed. Well, at that moment, my soldier ran up and pulled the trigger of his automatic rifle. Using Sambo techniques, I managed to stay alive and send the German to the other world.
So Sambo turned into my religion.
Everyone should have their own religion. Mine is Sambo.
There, near Vitebsk, was also his last battle. To come out intact from such a meat grinder was almost impossible. For many soldiers and officers of that war, the path was roughly the same. Half a year to a year of thorough training in schools, and then, if very lucky, a month or two on the front lines. After that, at best, an injury, at worst, death. Yuri Tranquilitsky was lucky. He was seriously wounded. But the beginning of this tragic story was quite unexpected and was related to food.
The main food during the war was millet. For some reason, there was a lot of it, specifically millet, and it wasn't sorted with black bits, adding a bitter taste or dead grains or some other plant along with the millet. Ends up without oil, naturally, and without milk, of course, in water. And it's not enough for your stomach to stop asking for food. I weighed less than 50 kilograms, and there was nothing to eat. Having occupied a large village, there was a long barn there. In this, we broke the lock. The soldiers broke the lock, and it turned out that they're Argentinian, Brazilian canned meat, wines, French cognacs, Spanish, Italian. An incredible abundance, because they also had officers' sets. I know what that's like. There are good snacks, good cognac. The soldiers got something simpler, but still decent. And what did my soldiers do? He takes a mess tin, takes a bottle, opens it all. No. He banks it with the butt over the mess tin and pours everything out with the glass. He throws this bottle, takes the next one, a different name. Since many were peasant children with 3 to 5 grades of education maximum, then they didn't read these labels. Another one, again, and so the pot is full. Then he drinks. Then at the end, I remember the sound well. He throws away the broken glass. Which one? They. And the next one, if he is able, he will take the next bottle. The general arrived, and the first question, who is sober? I approached, I'm sober. He looked at me like this. All right, don't breathe on me. I believe you. The road was visible. This was the last road out of Vitebsk for the Germans, the last one. I order you to cut this road and hold your position. And he said, if you succeed, you'll have a star on your chest. I did it, but the general forgot. But the promise, but it happens. I take it calmly, right at this place. An explosion 5 meters away from me, and I was showered with fragments. I was in a quilted jacket. This is a bulletproof vest in the Second World War. Shrapnel gets stuck in the cotton. Even after various operations, I weigh it. Whose is heavier? A quilted jacket, so that injury is one. Here's the second one. Everything here was torn off, and below the bone was exposed, all the blood vessels, nerves, all severed.
Here was a fragment.
Here, a fragment. Belarusian women tore their sheets to stop the bleeding, to bandage with anything. And I crawled. Walked is not the word. I crawled. To the rear, and stumbled upon, there's a German self-propelled gun. 3 fascists there, and they are shooting one by one, laughing, talking loudly, and firing in our direction. This arm doesn't work. It's very hard with my left hand. I struggled for a long time. It was 30 meters to them, and then I fired a burst and all of them. Sent them to the other world. When I crawled past that self-propelled gun, I heard such a hissing wheeze, a farewell to life. These are fascists. Were sent to the other world. Then medics found me, nudged me with a foot. I was in a periodically fainting state. Seems alive, one of them says. They brought a stretcher for me and immediately to the operating table. What's an operating table in a field hospital? It's a stretcher with this much blood on it. Liquid. They don't even pour it out. The previous ones. And beneath him, trough with spare parts.
Arms, legs cut off that are no longer needed. They periodically throw them into a pit nearby. Two barely standing surgeons above me. One says, "Well, shall we amputate to the elbow?"
The other says, "No, we'll have to up to the shoulder."
Then one of them says, "You know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm sleepy. I'm going to lie down and you do something." And the remaining surgeon, also falling asleep, he took that piece of flesh hanging from me.
He attached a couple of stitches to prevent it from falling off and bandaged it in black.
That's how I then made my way to Moscow. Yes, but that's it too.
So, they announced to us in the medical battalion, those wounded in the leg,
Those wounded in the leg and stomach, the truck is waiting. The rest, those who can walk, walk on foot to the rear. And so we trudged on foot into
The rear. It was like a funeral procession. One person fell and he was already dead. We put him by the side of the road. We laid down. Then some truck appeared and we managed to get in with difficulty and tapped on the cabin to drive more slowly because of the bumps on this dirt road. We shouted because it was a good test. And here's one episode that I must tell. So a large column of prisoners was passing by, Germans. One captain who was with us, it turned out he hadn't surrendered his pistol, pulled out the pistol, and into the crowd, he dropped off the prisoners. They took his pistol, started persuading him, but he was checking all over. He says, "All my people were shot.
They burned down the house.
I can't stand to see them." And after some time, he started shaking like that. Seizure, and he died. It was also with difficulty we got out of the car. Whoever could laid him by the side of the road and drove on.
Right now, this story by Yuri Nikolaevich seems wild and unimaginable. Severely wounded soldiers would make their way from the front line to the hospital without anyone's help. But such cases were common during that war. Veterans often told us about it. If you don't crawl out of the battlefield yourself, you won't save yourself. No one will pay special attention to you. There are thousands of wounded. Medical battalions can't handle everyone. Hospitals are overcrowded. Evacuation is poorly organized. There aren't enough vehicles and there's no communication. It's a mess where an injured soldier is often left on his own. If you want to survive, you will. So they wandered. 10 wounded veterans, sometimes on foot, sometimes on carts, sometimes on hitchhiked rides, until they traveled from Vitebsk to Smolensk. There, at a wrecked station, they saw a maneuverable locomotive without carriages, and in desperation, threatening with a pistol, ordered the engineer to take them to Moscow. They wanted to survive so much.
I don't know how long we traveled. Was it a day, a week, a month? We slept on this corner on coal remnants. We were black.
My hands smelled
with rotten herring,
which has been spoiled for a month already. And the feeling that there were little worms wriggling there. There was a clear sensation. I don't know if it was real or just an illusion. When we got out of the train, the engineer said, "Guys, now they're shooting at me, but I got you here." We reached the Belorusky station, and around us, a crowd gathered. This sight is terrible. I can imagine it. So my tunic has a torn off sleeve full of holes.
Ambulance, hospital. Washed, bandaged. Treatment began. Treated for 6 months. I had a black hand. Almost nothing moved. I was constantly massaging it. That's the main thing I was doing. I was constantly massaging it.
And since my right hand cannot shoot, I was demobilized until the end of the war.
In a hospital near Moscow, Yuri Trankvilitsky was slowly but surely recovering. His arm was gradually healing. Here is his photo, taken around that time near the hospital. And he got to celebrate Victory Day back home in Moscow, where he went to Red Square with the cheering crowd.
Well, a general jubilation began. I think there was never such a celebration of everyone like this in life. In a unified, so to speak, formation. Everyone, well, including me, with some of my friends, came to Pushkin Square and saw that on Tverskaya, the traffic was blocked there. A crowd is heading continuously to Red Square. And we went with it. Near the bookstore opposite Mosovet, I see. One guy climbed on another and they pulled out a flag. The flag was being displayed and we are already walking under the flag. I am walking next to the flag bearer. And that's how we entered Red Square. Here are the photos from Red Square. I looked, well, there I am, and recognized myself. It was packed. Ribs were cracking so closely. Everyone went to Red Square and no one left. I think it never happened like that again. That is, everything was filled. You can see it in these shots. Everything filled to the limit. And there were those in uniform, but I was already demobilized. I could have worn it on the 9th, but didn't. And they were tossed up, thrown up. This is visible in the pictures.
That's the moment when everyone was joyful.
Liberation, the end of the war, unforgettable.
Yuri Nikolaevich Trankvilitsky, born in 1925, reconnaissance platoon commander, guard lieutenant,